Hi, 8th grade parents and students. This is Module 7, Systems of Linear Equations. So this page is optional, but it's always kind of a fun activity. Usually it's pretty short. And look at this puppy. How can you not want to see what they're doing in that activity? But it is optional. It does help you get kind of the idea of what's going to be coming up in the module, so it's always a good idea to try to do that. This "Are you ready?" is very important. You should always do that just to make sure that you're ready and have the concepts and skills and vocabulary and everything that you need for this module. So work on those two, and then you can go on to the next page. So here's the Spark Your Learning. Lesson 1, represent systems by graphing. The I can statement says I can graph a pair of linear equations and draw a conclusion from the graph. So here they provide you with a graph. I would encourage you to look at that, and then we'll look through the information. It says Natasha is comparing 2 rock climbing gyms in her town. Each gym charges a fixed fee for gear rental, shoes, harness, etc., and an hourly fee for climbing. The graph shows the total cost at each gym based on the time spent climbing. Natasha wants to choose the gym with the better deal. What recommendations can you make? So again, you want to really look at, here's the time, the total cost, where do they start, what's the y-intercept there, what's the slope of each line, where do the gyms intersect, what might that mean, look at this. So they're going to have you look at the graph, but they're also suggesting that you make a table. This turn and talk will actually help you with this one. What information do you get by comparing the y-intercepts of the lines? What information do you get by comparing the slopes of the lines? So I would encourage you to do that, and then you can go on to the build understanding. So if we look at the build understanding here, again, someone's comparing climbing gyms. Cody is comparing the total cost of 2 climbing gyms. Each gym charges a fixed fee for gear rental and an hourly fee for climbing. Cody graphs the pair of equations as shown here in his, this is a little bit smaller, but there's his graph to help him compare the costs. So one thing, if you notice here, they don't label this x-axis, but if you look at what they're talking about, it's an hourly fee. So this is also hours and then total cost. What does the slope represent in this context? So what does that slope mean of each line? How do the slopes of the graphs compare? What does this tell you about the rock climbing gyms? So this is an interesting, it's a little different from this one here. The slopes, you'll notice something very specific about those slopes. C, what does the y-intercept represent? So remember, the y-intercept is when x equals 0. Where does that line cross the y-axis? D, what do the y-intercepts of the graph tell you about the rock climbing gyms? So you'll think about that. What does that mean when they are right there? E, what does the difference in the y-intercepts mean in this context? F, which gym is a better deal if Cody plans to climb for 2 hours? What if he plans to climb for 5 hours? And then how do you know? Is there a difference, or what is that difference if there is one? And then G, is there ever a situation in which Boulder Bay will cost less than Cliff World, and why or why not? So you'll use this graph basically to help you with all the different questions. And then the turn and talk says, suppose Cliff World increases their gear rental fee to $6, but keeps their hourly rate the same. Does this change the answer to any of these task 1 questions? So are any of those answers going to be different if they increase their gear rental fee to $6, but their hourly rate stays the same? So pause the video here, work on that one, and then you can go on to the next page. All right, so let's look at number 2. It says a mobile hotspot is a portable device that provides Wi-Fi. Both Cool Connect and MobileMe offer mobile hotspots for, I think this word is not supposed to be here, for a total monthly cost of Y, which includes a fixed fee plus a charge for the gigabytes of data you use, which is X. So you can see here they label this X-axis as data, gigabytes, and y is the total monthly cost. Graph and label each equation on the coordinate plane. So here they give you these equations, and they're in the form y equals mx plus b. Both of them are in that same form, that slope-intercept form that you know. So they want you to graph these lines. And then b, what is the slope of each line? What do the slopes tell you? C, what is the y-intercept of each line? And what do the y-intercepts tell you? So again, you can use these equations to find both the slope and the y-intercept if you remember that y equals mx plus b slope-intercept form where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. And here they're asking you, what does the slope tell you? What do the y-intercepts tell you? And then D, what does the point of intersection of the lines represent? So think about that and write your answer. E, when does one mobile hotspot cost less than the other? And they want you to explain your thinking, your reasoning there. So pause the video here, work on number 2, and then we can go on to number 3. All right, so let's look at number 3. 2 shops that rent snorkeling equipment have their pricing information shown. Each store charges a fixed fee for gear rental, snorkel, mask, fins, and an hourly rate. The total cost Y for renting equipment for X hours at the Sea Shack is given by the equation Y equals 2X plus 3. And the total cost for Watertown is given in the table. So here's the information for Watertown, and then they give you this equation for the Sea Shack. Graph and label each equation on the coordinate plane. So you're going to end up here on this graph with 2 different lines, and you want to label them. One is Watertown and the other one is the Sea Shack. B, what do you notice about the graphs? So they don't give you a very big line there, but anything that you notice you can write down. C, what do the y-intercepts and slopes tell you? And D, which is the better deal? And explain your reasoning. So answer those questions based on the information that they give you and the graph that you create. And then you can, once you're finished with that one, you can go on and do the check understanding. So if you finish the check understanding and you feel confident, then go ahead and do this on your own, these 2 pages. Once you complete the on your own and you don't need any more practice, this page is always optional, the homework more practice page. But I always suggest that you do the test prep and the spiral review each day just to make sure that you are kind of keeping up and practicing those test questions. So that's all for lesson 1. I will see you in lesson 2.